Time again, that time when we roll into our favorite virtual bar and get derailed in a conversation about, well, derailments. All the regulars are here. I'm joined by Greg and Ken, and I'm your host, Christopher Antone, and this is Three Pastors Walk into a Derailed Car.
Hey.
I mean, walk into a bar.
A bar.
This is
a derailed bar?
Yeah, I meant that. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
It's a derailed bar. There's been many times I've walked out of a bar feeling derailed.
I suspect if we get some passenger trains, you're going to get some derailed bars on there.
You're going to get quite a few derailed
bars. People.
You ever been to a train car restaurant? Like Frank's over in Spokane? Frank's Diner?
Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on Sprague?
I think the original one was on Sprague. There's one on the north side.
Okay. Yeah, I think
awesome
I've been there.
breakfast. Awesome breakfast.
Interesting.
It's not about the food. It's about the car.
I've never been to
It's pretty impressive.
train car restaurant.
But
Is there a risk of derailment?
Train car bar.
No,
that would be
bar.
depressing.
Only when you
Yeah,
drink
that would
too
be rough
much
right now.
and get derailed
Yeah.
inside the car.
What? Did you make any sense?
Sure. Yeah, overdrink and you're in the car and you
gotcha,
can't get
okay.
out.
And then you
Here's the door. You are derailed.
then you derail. Yeah.
You derail.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
That sounds like a craft beer. The
Derail.
The derailer.
The derailer. I was at a pizza joint not too long ago, and they had a beer on sale there. It was called the Big Bad Baptist.
Really? That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I happened to be with a Reform friend of mine, and I was like, yeah, see, there's no Reform beer here.
No Baptist beer. Oh, goodness gracious.
Yet we
Balls
derail.
of fire.
Yeah. I mean, we don't normally talk about environmental issues, but this one seems like it's talk-worthy. Yeah, talk-worthily.
Important.
Worthiness.
It sounds like it's important in East Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah, that alone's kind of weird, huh?
That's an interesting town. We used to go to a camp meeting, Fundamental Independent Baptist camp meeting in Palestine, Ohio. In fact, I think that's the location of it was called the Fellowship Track League, and I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just make sure. I don't want to say something that is untrue.
Really? That's a good thing.
I'd like to hear the story of why they named it East Palestine.
East Palestine.
Or Palestine.
Nope,
in
I was
Ohio.
incorrect. They're in Lebanon, Ohio.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in Ohio?
I don't know.
Transplant the Middle East.
They're over
here
there
to
near
Ohio.
Baghdad.
Yeah, do they have a Jerusalem over there?
There's all kinds of Middle Eastern names in the South.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think there is actually a Baghdad.
I don't think Ohio's in the South.
Yeah,
Midwest.
It's probably more Midwest. Yeah, I would say. There's probably some people that would disagree with you.
If
But
you're in Canada,
Canadians.
Canadians call it South.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people that come from Ohio seem to be very rural people. Maybe that's why you draw the conclusion that way, right? Yeah,
Could be.
yeah, because
I know a guy from Ohio.
yeah.
Yeah. Got he moved up here with us from California. Name's Gary. Hey Gary, how's it going
Yeah.
out there? I'm sure you're not listening to this.
People from
Shout out to
Ohio.
Gary.
Let's see.
Let's hear it.
Oh, yeah.
That's it? That's what's happening in Ohio, or is that Jakarta?
That's not me. That's you.
That's you.
Oh, it is Jakarta. That's the fire in Jakarta.
There's a fire in Jakarta.
Yeah. A massive fire at fuel storage station belonging to state-owned energy company Pertamina at North Jakarta, Indonesia. Multiple people dead.
That's
Sorry
rough.
about that. That was kind of weird, huh?
That's rough.
That kind of fits right into, though. I mean, it wasn't a derailment, but it was
What is it? A
it was
factory?
chemical, yeah.
Chemical factory. Yeah.
Fuel-
Well, there's been
fuel
some other weird things too. Like there was a steel factory here not too long ago that caught on fire,
Yeah.
and it was.
Pittsburgh, somewhere?
I'm not sure where
Pennsylvania?
that was at, but it was weird because they had like 100-year safety rating, where they had no incidences like 100
Wow.
years.
That's amazing.
Or wait a minute.
So we going conspiracy today, or are we just...
Who knows what? Who knows
Yeah,
what's
who
going to
knows what-
happen?
Only the shadow knows.
Warren Steel Plant in Warren, Ohio.
Ohio. Small
Yeah.
state.
I
Big
mean,
news.
you start taking everything into consideration, and it begins to look more and more suspicious as time goes on.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't help it. You know, you have a steel factory that's never had an incident catch on fire and explode. You have a derailment where there's a controlled burn. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And then you have another derailment here just like a couple
2
days
days
ago.
ago,
Yeah. So, yeah, what's going on over there in Ohio, guys? Can you guys get a handle on things? Because I could tell you right now that Greta is not
Message is
happy.
that we'll be watching you.
Uh-oh.
We'll be watching you.
This
on.
is all wrong.
This is a
I
message
shouldn't be up here.
from Greta to
I
Ohio.
should be back in school on
Okay.
the other side of the ocean. Yet
Yeah, you
you all
should.
come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. And yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Do you feel bad, Ohio?
Yeah, look what you've done.
Look what you've done.
You've ruined Greta's
Look how
life.
you have really upset Greta. I hope you're happy.
I know. Is there any pictures of her smiling?
I haven't. Yeah,
Is there?
actually, yeah. There's one where she's doing a dance routine with another guy, which is really awkward and weird. But yeah, it's out there.
Yeah. Is she 16 yet? Do you know?
I don't know, but apparently her childhood has been ruined.
Yeah, so she's done for.
I mean,
Oh,
I don't know how her
yeah.
childhood has been ruined. She's been sailing around on boats all over the world and flying all over the countryside, enjoying all the things that the world has to offer. I mean, I don't know how her
Burning
Child-
fossil fuels in the air.
she's had more experiences in her childhood than my children have. Perhaps she's ruining my children's childhood. I don't know, just a thought. Is she smiling in that picture? Or is it terrifying?
It says, Greta observed the rising mushroom clouds and smiled. Finally, the future is safe from anthropogenic climate change.
Wait, what?
It's basically the end of the world.
Oh,
This is Reddit saying
Oh,
it's
Reddit.
yeah.
good old Reddit. That's like saying Wikipedia said.
But the picture of her is, God, look at
Yeah, it's probably photoshopped.
it's evil.
Yeah, it's probably photoshopped.
Yeah.
Some dude sitting in his basement probably
Let's make her ugly.
manipulated an image of her or whatever. They're known to do that, So why did we decide to talk about this, Ken? What's the point here?
Well, the point was, when the original derailment in Palestine, East Palestine, whatever, happened,
You mean the sabotage?
whatever that was. Well, it reminded me of of the train derailment up in Coquilala a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was
which reminded me of the Rathdrum incident, which reminded me of the Long Bridge being built. And it was like, man, there's been a lot of train accidents in this region. What if something like that happened here? What would that look like? And what would that do to our quality of life?
No, that was back in 2000, right? That was that in the Kootenai River, the one that you're talking about?
The coal train or the fuel spill?
The one that I was thinking about was the BNSF
Rathdrum.
The one in Bonners Ferry.
Oh, Bonners Ferry?
Oh,
yeah.
There's yet another one.
That was in.
I didn't go
2000.
back that far. I only went back like 5 years because a lot has happened just in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a long train of derailments.
Pun intended.
Did you see what I did?
Yeah,
there?
yeah. I probably wouldn't have caught it if you weren't grinning so big.
It is kind of scary. I mean, you see these trains going by, and all of us have been there at the light at Athol, or light at Athol, the train stop at Athol, or the crossing, and seen them trains going by there at 60 plus miles an hour, flying through there. Yeah, I mean,
and it's uncomfortable to be the lead car.
I always stay way back. If
Yeah.
I'm in the front, I always stay way
those cars
back.
are what, 60, 70 feet? You'd have to stay back. Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I just try not to be the first car.
Yeah.
Because it does terrify me to think, one of these cars could skip off and I'd just be dead.
Oh, yeah.
There'd be no hope. What a way to go, too. Oof.
Yeah. Looking out your window going, hey, look at
Yeah.
Hello, Jesus.
Considering how much traffic passes through North Idaho and the sketchy safety record of the past, the risk does seem high.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like flying, though. When you think of the millions of miles that airplanes put on literally daily, I would suspect the number of incidents is very low. So it would. Did you get any stats on that? The number of miles traveled?
I've seen that before, and actually air travel is about the safest mode of transportation you can take.
So I wonder what
if you do happen to be in an accident, it's usually pretty bad for you, but you're in a small club, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
But train derailments, man, you start looking at some of the accident records and the rates, it's just like kind of scary. These things are just going off all over the place, and we just don't really know about it.
Yeah.
According to Boston Times travel section, trains are 3 times more dangerous than flying, but are still safer than cars.
Yeah.
Which are 40 times more risky than flying.
Yeah. Ban cars.
Did you?
We have to get
either
rid
of you
the
guys
highways.
find out what the story was with the accident up on 95 last Thursday?
Did not.
I was stuck in that
were you?
for over an hour and a half.
Where was it?
It was just south of Coquilala Creek.
Okay.
It was just over Granite Mountain, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really bad conditions.
Yeah, I did not find anything about it. I didn't actually look anything up on it, but what was that, 4 days ago?
Yeah, I looked for it the next day.
Huckleberry Mountain Road. That sounds like a North Idaho name.
Yeah.
Between Dinkum Ferry. Between Dinkum Ferry and Huckleberry Mountain Road.
That sounds like an East Palestine, Ohio road there.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear anything about that. But, yeah, in light of the fact that Genesis 2:15 tells us that God took man and put him in the garden and told him to work and keep it, one of the things that I have brought up before, even in my sermons, is that, we are to be stewards of the land that God's given us, and it's, I don't think that we need to be freaking out about climate change. I mean, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know whether there is climate change or not. I don't feel like I need to be panicking in an existential crisis because of climate change. But also, on the other side of that, I don't know that it's a good thing to just dismiss anything that's environmentally irresponsible.
Yeah, and damaging.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Potentially damaging.
it just seems like you can't. Does it have to be a one thing or the other? Is it like you're either an environmentalist or you're not? I mean, does it have to be that way? I mean,
Well, look at that first derailment. What was it? Vinyl chloride, and vinyl chloride, nasty stuff. Hey, half our buildings in America have vinyl chloride in them in the form of PVC pipe. That's what it is, polyvinyl chloride. And so there is a product that is usually derived from a lot of these
petroleum
chemicals. Yeah. And so we have to keep an eye on that at the same time as, progress must go forward. So we have a lot to think about when we do that. Thus the EPA and, 9 other government agencies that are trying to keep a handle on all of that stuff.
That's kind of the problem down there, though, isn't it? Right, the EPA being involved.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like every time the government gets involved, things get worse.
Yeah, you've heard the old adage, we're the government, we're here to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there, I have a video of a chemical engineer that's working down there that is talking about how and I'm not sure who was responsible for the controlled burn. Who was responsible for creating the controlled burn of those substances? Do we know?
I do not know.
Was it the rail company?
It was careless, whoever it was.
Yeah, wasn't it? Didn't a fire start during the derailment?
Well, that was
That's not
one
what they've
story.
been saying. That's
I've
not
heard
what
it
they've
both
been saying.
ways.
Okay.
East Palestine Fire Chief silent when Environmental Protection Agency claims he ordered the control burn. So it is the EPA involved in that, according to the Ohio Press. Controlled burn successful at site of East Palestine train derailment. That's in the Intelligencer. It's successful, guys. Don't worry. Don't mind those dead fish.
Yes.
It ignited.
Yeah.
Good
Don't
job.
mind what
You can breathe that black
your
cloud.
skin is itching and sloughing off. Don't worry, the burn was okay.
Hey, it was safe. Especially to those of you living right on the railroad tracks there.
Well, if you
Relax.
if you listen to like the legacy media, that's all they talk about is how the controlled burn is going, how the controlled burn is working. I found this video of this chemical engineer that is talking about the controlled burn, and listen to what he says. It's really interesting.
The guy that made all the decisions. Would you have done a controlled burn?
Well, there's the lie. It wasn't a controlled burn, it was an uncontrolled burn. See, I'm a chemical engineer as well as a top health and safety guy. I've got undergraduate and graduate degrees in chemical engineering.
You're the first actual expert that we've gotten to speak to. In your opinion, why do you believe that it was an uncontrolled burn? Why are you using that terminology when so far everywhere else we've seen that it was a controlled burn?
You could go to a place called West Liverpool downriver, and that's where they burn hazardous waste. And in a hazardous waste situation, they very carefully control the temperature and the amount of oxygen so that they get complete combustion, right? It's time, temperature, and amount of the air-fuel ratio. There's no controlling of the amount of air that gets in there. That's why you saw all that soot. So it's not a controlled burn, because a controlled burn would have to be like in a furnace or in your car or some system where you control the fuel, in other words, the vinyl chloride and the amount of oxygen. So they didn't do that. So it's an uncontrolled burn. One of the worst ways to determine exposure in general is to smell it, because if you smell the odor, guess what? You're already exposed, right?
How long have you been doing this?
30 years. I'm in most of the big named lawsuits.
Anyways, he's got a lot of experience. He goes on to talk about all the different things he's been involved with, and he was talking about how the idea that people are calling this a controlled burn is nonsense, because it's not a controlled burn. You just walk up to something and light it on fire. That doesn't make it controlled.
Well, I think the telltale would be, could they have put it out in a moment's notice? No. It was a supervised burn.
No, it is a supervised
It was a
burn.
witnessed
Yeah.
burn.
From a distance.
It was not controlled.
And I don't know that they could have controlled it, but did they start it, I guess, is the question.
I don't know, Chris. Did they?
I don't think it probably did, because they said the reason for the burn was because it was leaking into the ground.
Oh,
So,
not the air.
yeah,
You know,
thought it'd be the
this
lesser of two evils. I
that
guess.
who ordered the control burn? The EPA, according to the Ohio Press, did not order the controlled burn. The local fire chief was the incident commander who made the decision in consultation with Norfolk Southern, local law enforcement, and response officials from Ohio, the EPA spokesperson said. So they're saying that the EPA had nothing to do with the controlled burn. They're saying that that was all Ohio state officials. But that seems to be like a common thing, you know, just pass the buck down. You know, it wasn't us.
I can't imagine the EPA wanting to burn it. They would have wanted to sop it up or do something else. That would be very incriminating for them to
A controlled vent and burn of toxic chemicals of the train derailment in East Ohio went as planned.
Yeah, we had a plan for that.
This is ABC News, right? All right, so let's see here. Let's see what they say.
So who planned the derailment?
As planned, and no concerning air and water quality readings have been detected. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said Monday, no relation to Ben, I'm sure. For now, out of an abundance of caution, Pennsylvanians who live within 2 miles of East Palestine, where this derailment occurred, should just continue to shelter in place. Shelter in place. Crews monitoring air quality have not seen anything unexpected.
Keyword unexpected.
So far, so good, and we're going to continue to monitor this until this fire's out. James Justice of the EPA said. So they may not have started it, but they were there and they were okay with it. You know, so, you know, you could do a guilty by association thing there if you really wanted to.
Very interesting name for somebody that works for the EPA.
Have you seen the videos of the guys going up to the creek beds and they take the sticks and they move it around in the muck, and then the film of oil comes up and floats on top of the creek?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's bonkers, man.
Where?
Just dead fish all over the creeks and everything right there in Palestine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there's no way. The people are already being told to drink bottles of water. There's who knows if their water will ever be drinkable again. Yeah. You know, and these guys are just like goofing around.
It's bungled.
Yeah. So what was that? March 4th when that happened?
That was the latest one with no hazardous materials, but
right.
Same railroad, same state, just down the road.
So fortunately, no cars were carrying hazardous materials. So
on
February 2nd, 38 cars of the NST derailed in East Palestine, including 11 carrying hazardous materials. So that was February 2nd. We're now March 6th, and it's still going strong, last I heard.
Yeah. I want to read something here real quick. How toxic.
Wait, you can read?
Yeah. Learned over the weekend.
Holy smokes.
We let him read?
How we let him read.
Wow.
I was just thinking, you know, we're talking about this horrible thing out there that's, you know, causes so much
Hear the trains?
problem.
I know. I heard him in the background.
I hope that came through.
Probably didn't.
How toxic is vinyl chloride? Vinyl chloride exposure is associated with an increased risk of a rare form of liver cancer, as well as primary liver cancer, brain and lung cancers, lymphoma, and leukemia.
Nice stuff.
So that just came out last year, too.
Interesting.
So it's really a nasty substance, I suspect, for everybody involved with handling it, moving it, using it. I mean, I would be interested to see how that is taken from its current form into PVC pipe.
PVC.
Yeah. You know, what does that look like? And what's coming out of the smokestacks at those places?
Now, this was something that I wasn't aware of. So vinyl chloride is a gas. Mm-hmm. It's not a liquid.
Not a substance. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, I was thinking in my head, it was some kind of like liquid that was seeping into the ground, but it is not. It's a gas that is escaping into the air,
Right.
which might be why they decided we just better burn it because it's just going to get out.
It is flammable.
Yeah, and start. Actually, you think about it, it might have been far worse had they not burned it, had they not set it on fire. It might have been the only short-term solution that they had. And the fallout from it would be far less than if they just allowed the vinyl chloride to just seep into the air. Like, how do you capture large quantities of gas seeping into the air at one time? I mean, how do you begin to do that? What do you just get a giant dome tent put over the top of it, like a fumigation tent or something?
Get the whole town over there and start breathing.
Because it's not like you can walk into it and start sealing stuff up. You know, I mean. How would you begin to do that?
I kind of wondered if it was in liquid form, if it was compressed. Why else would they call it gallons of gas? You don't measure gas in gallons.
Well, yeah, you can.
Cubic.
Yeah, you can.
Cubic.
And then sometimes you have gas that has a liquid component like propane or butane.
Yeah.
You know, so it could be something like that. I would suppose. I don't know enough about it to be able to speak to it, but you know, I mean, you have a gas that's leaking into the air, like even propane. You know, I mean, it's like you won't even know it. Or natural gas is another thing. You know, I mean, natural gas is, you know, just can leak into the air and you won't even know it. But
then, how did that cause such a disaster in the water?
Well, I think that's probably a result of the soot falling down from the smoke.
And the oil film?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question, you know. I know that 43,000 aquatic animals are now dead. So, you know, that's good news.
Yeah, who counted those?
I don't know. There's some guy sitting there and he's, okay, 1, 2, 3.
Bring your dead
4.
fish and animals into the
Bring out
drugstore.
your dead. Monty Python show there. Bring out your dead. Yeah, they measured gas in
Gallons.
gallons.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You have a certain
that's a thing.
size gallon tank when you get propane.
Let's just see. Let's just make sure. Vinyl chloride, right?
But it's a liquid at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like how much gas does a gallon of vinyl chloride make?
Okay, so here it is. Vinyl chloride is a colorless, flammable gas that evaporates very quickly.
So evaporates.
Gas does not evaporate.
What does it
Liquids
do?
It can be
evaporate.
formed. Yeah, but you don't
Disperse.
normally. That is usually handled as a liquid under pressure.
Yeah, come on, truth.
But see, if it comes out and it evaporates quickly, like if you had propane and you had propane spill out of a tank, it would instantaneously evaporate into gas.
Right.
Like, I mean, it wouldn't have a chance to soak into the ground, right? So I wonder if it's the same type of deal. Like how would you? Vinyl chloride is a colorless gas with a sweet odor
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
at high concentrations. Like who is the guy that did that? Right? It's like, oh, it has a sweet aroma. I'm getting notes of caramel.
Skittles.
Skittles.
You know, who knows? I don't know that. Based on that, though, I don't see how it could soak into the ground. You know, out of the container, but maybe it does. You know, I don't know. I wish I knew more. I'm gonna have to learn more because apparently
Go
it
back
is
to school and get that chemical engineering degree.
at all ambient temperatures. Vinyl chloride is an extremely flammable and potentially explosive gas that is heavier than air.
Well, that's
Well,
fun.
that might be part of it too. If it's heavier than air, that means it settles on the
Stay
ground. Yeah, and so
and disperse.
it probably stays on the ground and then kind of settles into the
Kills everything.
kind of like a
Immerses.
like a plague.
like gasoline.
Yeah,
It stays down. Heavier than air.
It's an organochlorine. That can't be good. Yeah, have you ever cleaned pools before?
No.
One time, my dad had just bought this above ground pool, and he's really proud of it, right? And so part of what you had to do to care for it, you had this little cap that you put up, and you put like a chlorine tablet in this cap, and then it would disperse the chlorine. I made the mistake of opening the container too close to my face.
Take a big swiff.
And I took a swiff of the chlorine, and it locked up my lungs for like 20 seconds. I could not breathe at all.
It's nasty.
It was like, so I can't even imagine what something like this. People don't really think about how dangerous some of these gases are, but if you had a chlorine that was dispersing throughout the area, it would kill everything that it came into contact with. It would just suffocate it instantly. Because that chlorine, it just like just the regular chlorine, when I breathed it in, it was instantaneous like that. My lungs just went locked up.
Yeah,
I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It was weird. Yeah,
it's like ammonia. I worked at a Shell chemical plant one summer, and they had 100% ammonia running through the pipes there. It was a fertilizer plant, and they used it for doing some stuff with fertilizer. Not sure exactly what. I was a painter. But interesting, some of the stories, people walking along, and they just drop dead because they get a hit of it. And like what we have in our homes, I think it's like 2 or 3% ammonia, what we call ammonia, maybe up to 7, but 100%, boom, you're dead. So I suspect the same with chlorine. The closer it is to where it's being manufactured, the stronger it is, and it'll do you in pretty quick. One last story. I mixed ammonia and bleach together one time, working in a restaurant. Thought that'll clean the bathrooms. If my boss hadn't come in, I'd be dead today. I was laying in a lump in the corner.
Did he fire you?
I mean,
I don't remember.
Why don't you just spray everything down with hydrochloric acid?
Yeah, there you go. That'll clean it too.
So the guy had mentioned that incinerator in East Liverpool, and it turns out that as of February 28th, they were going to start hauling in cubic yards of soil contaminated from the substance to this plant to start incinerating it and getting it cleaned out. Now that's an actual controlled burn, according to our chemical engineer that we listened to.
So what? I don't understand. They were going to bring the dirt in, start the dirt on fire.
Yeah.
Well, they'll burn it in the incinerators and then get it cleaned out. And I guess
burn all the.
Well, you wouldn't take it back because it would be sterilized at that point. So you might kill everything with the sterilization.
Yeah. It's just going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be dirt that you go put in a fill
value
somewhere. Yeah.
We had to do that with a property we bought, and it had a leaking diesel tank underground. And they had to come out, take the tank out, and then they excavated all of the dirt around it that had any detection of diesel fuel in it and incinerate the soil.
Wow.
Burn all the hydrocarbons off of it. And then I don't know where they got rid of what was left.
Into the air. Everything just goes up into the air. Wait, where's my clip? Where's my clip of Greta? Where's that at?
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you. You destroyed my childhood.
Yes. I should be at school. We're like, please.
Oddly enough, they're hauling all this stuff to this incinerator, and environmentalists are pitching a fit about it being incinerated there.
Because?
Let's see. After poisoning one town in the region, Norfolk Southern and EPA are now about to do the same in another community just down the road. That was the leader of the River Valley River Valley Organizing on Monday outlined the group's objections to the decision to bring the waste to HTC. There's that's your problem, not ours. This is completely unsafe and unacceptable and will only widen the crisis. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this stuff is going straight up into the air. There's no telling how far the fallout has gone.
Well, that's, once the proverbial cat's out of the bag, you can trace that thing down and to where you never get rid of it, right? Like,
No.
like down at Hanford, there's square miles of nuclear waste down there underground, leaking and leaching, and it's like there is no safe place for it.
Yeah, that's kind of like we've had this discussion a little bit before about nuclear power and it's how very safe it is and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you have to do something with the waste that is created, because that's how you generate that power, is by nuclear waste. You create nuclear waste, and that stuff just doesn't go away. Like, you can bury it, but it'll sit there contaminated for centuries.
Yeah.
So, like, how is that better than what we're doing right now in reality? You know, I understand that it's safe, and I understand that, you know, that the accidents are rare and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a plane crash, though. You know, it's like, oh yeah, plane travel is the safest type of travel that there is. You know, there's hardly ever an accident. However, if you're involved in the one accident they have in 20 years, you're dead. It's like there's no bones about it. You know, it's either all or nothing. You know, so I don't know, man. The generating of power is a very it's a waste producing product. You know, no matter how you do it, unless you're doing like hydroelectric, which seems to me like probably the best way to generate power is hydroelectric, because how much can you power with one dam? You know, and how do you and if you look at like the Columbia River Gorge, you know, they're not flooding out massive regions of people to create these dams. That dam on the Columbia River, it doesn't back up stuff and create massive lakes that put people out of houses. No, it's just got it. How many dams could you put on that river?
Well, there's already, how many active dams are there in the Columbia? It's at least like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Could be in the 20s.
How
it powers the entire region, the entire Northwest.
On Columbia River. Let's see if it'll even tell us. 150 hydroelectric projects in the basin alone, including 18 main stem dams on the Columbia River and its main tributaries.
Close.
So 18. It has them all mapped out there. You can see it all throughout Idaho, and they're impressive. When we took our jet boat tour on the Snake River, you end at a dam, and he says it's better to wait for the dam to release, because then the rapids are way better.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, it fills up substantially when the dam releases. So there is an environmental impact to that, but it's got to be better than burying nuclear waste underground. Now, that's obviously not an option for everyone, because not everyone has fast-moving rivers that are capable of doing that without creating massive reservoirs of water to let the weight do the work, you know.
Imagine them putting a hydroelectric dam on the Mississippi. That would back up big time.
The problem with the Mississippi is that it's a main thoroughfare of industry.
Yeah.
So you'd have to create locks to get people.
Ferries.
Yeah. You'd have to make a way to manage trade.
Damped part of it or diverted it.
Yeah, I guess you could
huge
like do
project.
like half of it, you know, or something, you know, I guess.
It's something I just found.
New Orleans seems to happen fairly frequently. Let's go ahead and run it through.
Well,
there.
that's what happens when you build a city under sea level.
Right.
All right. So, yeah.
Where is nuclear waste stored in Idaho? The waste is in tanks above the eastern Snake Plain Aquifer that supplies water to cities and farms in the region, leading to concern about radioactive contamination of the aquifer if the tanks leak.
Yeah.
And they will.
Isn't
ultimately.
that a brilliant idea?
Yeah, let's put it in above an aquifer that serves, the hundreds of thousands of people,
And
hope that it doesn't break in our lifetime.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not convinced on the merits of nuclear power. if there was a better way of disposing of the waste, if there was a better way of managing the waste, maybe. But nuclear waste is nasty, nasty stuff, man. You think that hydrocarbons going into the air because of coal burning or whatever is bad. Yeah, wait until you get a community inundated with radioactive material. These people are going to have their skin sloughing off of them. It breaks down your DNA. It's not good stuff, man. I don't know.
It's odorless, colorless, can be in any form. It can be in the air, it can be in the water, it can be in solid materials. There's only one way to detect it.
No, it's because it's a particle. Yeah, it's particle energy, and so you would never even know that you were being inundated with it. It's not like I don't know, man. I don't think there's any really easy solutions to the energy answer, and certainly, what's even more entertaining about that whole conversation is this push towards electric vehicles. Man, you ever seen the mines that mine out the materials for the batteries?
Yeah.
They're strip mines, man. People used to freak out about strip mines because they're devastating to the ecosystem. Yeah. But that's what people want, man, because it's environmentally friendly. It's like, well, okay, fair enough. Look at look at where all this stuff comes from, and how many you need. Good grief! Yeah. The battery packs for them cars are insane.
Well, same situation with the wind power, the turbines. They wear out. Where are they going to put all that stuff? It's not reusable, not recyclable. Yep. I watched
and they're all made out of petroleum.
Yeah. They're made out of PVC, aren't they?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know what they're made out of.
I think it's an aluminum.
Is it like titanium or something?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I remember a little video guy walked up to one of these charging stations with all these people with their electric cars plugged in there, and he's asking questions like, how do you like your car, blah, 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 what kind is it, how long have you had it, and where do you get your power from to charge this? She goes, right here. She points at the little kiosk thing, and he goes, yeah, well, where does that get its power from? And there's a big building, and she goes, I think from that big building there. Yeah, but where does that big building get its power?
Meanwhile, in the background, these black plumes going into the air.
These coal-fired plants creating electricity for you to run your car.
As long as you feel good about it. Yeah, the windmills are only 11 to 16% resin or plastic. The rest of it is steel, iron or cast iron, copper, or aluminum.
And does it talk about recycling those?
No, I didn't look that up.
Look for pictures of wind turbine blades being disposed.
Yeah, buried.
Acres and
acres of them being buried.
According to
Greta, where are you?
According to Union of Concerned Scientists, about 85% of wind turbine component materials such as steel, copper, electronics, and gearing can be recycled or reused. But the blades, what does this say? The blades, the wind turbines, wind power is projected. Oh man, I lost it. The blades are not somehow. I don't know why. Maybe because they're carbon fiber, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I lost it in the report here of the language. Wind turbine blades require disposal or recycling when the turbines are decommissioned at the end of stage use, when the wind farms are being upgraded in a process known as repowering. It involves the same site, infrastructure for wind turbines, upgrading capacity turbines. Blades might be replaced with more modern and typically larger blades. The fiberglass blades, once they're no longer needed, pose the greatest challenge to end-of-use considerations for wind and generations. So some of the older ones that are made out of fiberglass are not recyclable.
That's the one we saw getting buried, I guess. Huh?
Probably. They may be creating them out of a different material now.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't know. I've seen some pretty clever things done to generate power, though, like with wind. in particular. Some of the best ones I've seen were ones that were put out in the ocean, and they were collecting wind that was generated from the ocean. Another one that I saw where a guy was putting them into shipping lane currents.
Yep.
And using the currents from the shipping lanes to generate the power.
Yeah, underwater.
I thought that was pretty
Objects.
interesting. And there's all kinds of things that you can do. Another one was using waves to generate power. So it was using the motion of the waves to generate the power. And like I was telling Ken before you got here, Greg, what we really need is we need some engineer somewhere to come up with a perpetual motion device. I mean, what's the problem?
I don't know. I've seen it in movies.
Yeah. I mean, all you do is just push it, and then it just sits there and goes by itself forever. I mean, I don't see what the problem is. We got all these clever, engineers today.
We have gravity. We should use it.
Come on, Elon.
Come on, Elon. We need a perpetual motion device. So how many trains? Let's see. So 50 to 70 trains operated by Union Pacific and BNSF pass through Sandpoint, Idaho each day. Each day. Each day. I hear the trains a lot, like where I live at. You can hear them, their horns and stuff. I can even, on a real still night, I can hear them rolling
if the
down the track.
Wind is right. Yeah, we've looked down in the field below our house before, and they moved the train.
They moved the train.
There's a train down there.
Each day, many of them carrying coal or oil headed for the West Coast. Where's this oil coming from? Canada? Because I thought they closed up all their oil drilling.
A bunch of it comes from Wyoming. Yep. Goes through Montana. Some of it gets picked up in eastern Montana, comes through, heads for Seattle.
So I guess there's a refinery in eastern Montana? Some refineries?
Don't know.
I don't think there's any refineries there. I think they pull the crude up there and it goes over to the coast, and there's refineries on the coast.
Oh, okay.
So they're hauling the crude in train cars?
Yeah. Those big black ones.
Yeah, like the black helicopters without any numbers on them. Saw another one of those yesterday.
Let's see. ExxonMobil has a refinery in Montana. Montana has a long history in production and refining dating back to the 1900s. There are 20 refineries operating across the Treasure Valley.
Wow.
Oil Refinery, ExxonMobil, Calumet Falls. Yeah, all of them right around the Butte area. So that's directly east of us, almost, of like east and a little south of where we are. You can say, well, there's Coeur d'Alene right there. Look at Coeur d'Alene. Look at you over there by all the refineries. Cute little Coeur d'Alene.
Hiding in the mountains.
So, yeah, there is a massive oil. But, I mean, I would assume that they're hauling hazardous materials as well.
Well, sure.
They haul
other than
nuclear
oil.
waste on I-90 through Coeur d'Alene.
That's great news.
Yeah. Sorry.
Do they hide it?
I-
Is it like in secret containers? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never
It
seen
looks like it says milk on the outside. They're not going to advertise it.
Wait, I went to the dairy farm on accident. I thought it was milk. That'd be rough.
Yeah. Yeah, when we moved up here, we looked at all that stuff. We didn't want to be near nuclear waste or nuclear power plants. We wanted 4 seasons, all of them being real mild, no natural disasters, And then, we move up here a year later, Mount
that
St.
worked
Helens goes off and buries us in ash. Have the worst winter ever.
Well, there's a super volcano in Yellowstone that's due to erupt at any moment.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to end the world.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
We got a front row seat.
Yeah. Won't that be nice?
Well, I mean, if in a situation like that, you really want to be the first one to go.
Yeah.
Well, God is not going to destroy the world again with water. We know that.
Is it going to be with a
So-
volcano?
At least not from the sky.
But yeah. Well, yeah.
Do you think he's going to leave the base? Like, do you think it'll be like he's going to destroy the earth in a fervent heat, right, is what the scripture says. Do you think it'll just be like scouring the surface and he'll leave the the foundation and just rebuild on the foundation, or do you think he's just going to completely annihilate it and start over?
Well, I think.
Well, he says a new Earth. So I think it'll just become a charred nub out there in space like the moon.
We as believers will not be here, so he can do anything he wants.
Well, and also
nuclear, a lot of scientists over the years have thought nuclear was the way it was going to go, because nuclear is heat. It cooks. It takes you out.
Well, I mean, in reality, he just couldn't think it's melted and then it's gone. But, I often have postulated new heavens and new earth to be that this reality just gets completely retconned. And that there will be nothing left of this reality, because this reality is tainted by sin.
Yes.
So no matter where you go, there's an active destruction happening. And so I'm not sure that you could, that he would even leave this universe, this reality as it is. Probably just completely annihilate it and be done with it. Fervent heat maybe refers to, how it was perceived by the revelator. How would you perceive that? It would be a fervent heat. What does a collapse of a reality look like?
Well, let's see. Back in the 60s.
That? How do you describe that? No, it's not a mandala, okay? But, physicists have said that we're working towards a collapse. So you had a big bang, and then there will be a big collapse, and where everything will just kind of shrink into nothingness, and then it'll start back over again.
Yeah.
And so, it makes me wonder if they're not like touching on something that is a possibility that God will do.
Well, God holds it all together through Jesus, and whatever he wants to do, he can do.
Well, yeah.
And we can sit here and conjecture.
Well, that's
all
kind
day
of the
long,
point of
so.
what we do here, right?
Yeah,
we sit
it
here and
is.
conjecture over stuff, right? So
Figure out God.
Such
trivialities.
The center of the earth. I love it when people talk about it. Like, well, it's molten lava and everything. We've gone down 8 miles?
Yeah,
at the most.
I thought it was like molten metal, like
you thought it was
like metal.
Yeah.
Like
What
iron
is
or
it?
something.
Nobody knows. I think Hal Lindsey might have had it.
You think there's
Right.
another world down there?
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's
like living
hell.
on the inside.
It's
No,
the
it's
turtle,
hell.
right?
It's
Maybe, yeah. It could be a
Turtle
turtle.
holding it up.
It's the
plane of the earth on the
weeping
turtle.
and gnashing of teeth, and where the fire never ends. That makes sense. You could put billions of people inside.
Well, I
the
think
earth.
that's one of the reasons why people misinterpret Scripture a lot. They view hell as being a place on earth or in earth, which it is not. It is a different plane of existence that was created for the demons and Satan and his fallen angels. And so, yeah, it's not down there. Hell is not down there. In fact,
you say that with certainty.
Well, yeah, because it's not. When he talks about hell, right? So there's that verse that people use to say that Jesus Christ went to hell to save the antediluvians, where he descended to the deep parts of the earth. Right. Well, that translation doesn't mean that he descended to hell, because you can't descend to hell.
Didn't take an elevator.
He didn't take an elevator down to hell, and he, by the way, didn't need to go to hell to do any of the things that he did. In fact, when it says hell, it's referring to the earth. It's referring to the plane that we live on. He descended here, and in order for him to ascend, he first had to descend. Right? And so I heard a guy do a long talk on this one time about how Jesus descended to hell to get the keys to hell and death, as if hell and death have a literal set of keys. Come on, guys. Can we learn nuance? Because, Jesus didn't go to hell and walk up to Satan and say, give me them keys.
Wait a minute.
That's not a thing.
We did a play on that called Love and Death, and we actually had the keys.
Play would be fine. It's a piece of art. Yeah. Understand what you're doing.
A reality too.
Understand what you're doing, right?
I don't want to. This is more fun.
It's funny, you know. But they get this image of Jesus like walking around with a dangling set of keys on his tunic or whatever, you know,
on a retractable.
Well, what's
keychain.
that? What's that, Jesus? Oh, that's the keys to hell and death. Yeah. You know?
These other ones over here, these are the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
I got them too.
And this
like,
is the
come on,
executive
guys.
restroom over here. Only God and I can use that one.
We've completely lost the
where were
ability
we?
to interpret nuance. I don't know where we're at with this. Where were we at?
I don't know.
We were talking about 2 or 3 chain. So we were talking about the derailments. We were about to talk about the derailments that have happened in Montana, Bonners Ferry, Sandpoint, of the train of all of the different things that are going along. I looked at that one back in 2000. That one was rough because the train, the conductors were still in the train and it was underwater.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was bad. But
Can I go to one of these bullet points that's been bugging me?
I don't know.
Is it bugging you?
Yeah. A U.S. Department of Transportation study predicts there will be 10 crude oil or ethanol train derailments each year for the next 2 decades, according to the Associated Press. Those accidents could cost the United States more, blah, 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 $4 billion in damages and potentially kill hundreds of people.
So that's
What-
kind of
what
the fulcrum of my argument here is that we
Yeah.
have all of these trains going through North Idaho. Some of them have already fallen off the tracks. We know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time and odds.
Yep.
Where's it going to happen? What's that going to be like?
Yeah.
Are we
And-
prepared for it?
Are we prepared for it? Or are we doing our best to prevent it and save lives and property and wildlife and
They
all of that.
predict.
yeah, just
Well, based
You
on
know,
the
that's
based on the statistics.
10.
Yeah.
That's
But
per
that-
year. That's
10 a year. 10 a year.
Yeah. You can
the next 20 years.
yeah, you can do predictions on insurance companies do this all the time. They
Sure.
build actuaries on what could happen. Yeah.
But
So-
let's say they're off by 50%, and only half of those. That's what we're talking about.
5
is
a
the
year?
the one that's going to happen in Athol, Idaho.
Well,
or like I talked about farther on down here, they just finished the second track across Ponderay Lake
Mm-hmm.
up at the Long Bridge. And we're talking here about in Western Washington, they're often seeing 10,000 plus foot trains almost every day. That's almost 2 miles
Yeah.
long. Imagine if one of those derailed over the lake and spilled hundreds of millions of gallons of ethanol or oil into
Mhm.
the lake.
well, we've already
Well,
had them
like-
derail into the Kootenai River, and so I mean, it's not a far stretch to imagine
Sure.
that at some point there will be a train derailment,
And not even-
in the lake itself.
Not even so much the bridge over the lake, but you've all driven up around the north end of the lake. Those
Mhm.
tracks go right next to the lake, all the way over
All
to
the way.
Clark Fork.
Yep.
That's like 100 miles all the way, to Knoxon in Montana. So they could derail anywhere over there, and odds are it's going to hit the water.
Yeah, which would totally. Well, how would that affect Lake Ponderay? Because it's massive.
It is
Indeed.
massive. And there is a north-south current to it because it flows into the aquifer. So that would flow south. It would probably touch pretty much the entire lake within, I would say, a month.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that's terrifying.
And then if the aquifer gets hit,
yeah,
it's
it's over.
over.
So, do you think that more regulation is the answer?
Well,
Because there was
I just hope somebody cares enough to be thinking about this and trying to find ways to reduce the risk.
yeah, well,
I don't think you can eliminate it completely, but we got to be doing more than we are doing.
Well,
'cause
you have an advocate,
I do?
Transportation Secretary
Besides Greta.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg
Oh, good.
on Thursday called on former President President Trump to support Biden administration reversing Trump-era deregulations in the wake of the derailment of a train carrying hazardous chemicals in Ohio. One thing he can do is this is what Buttigieg said. One thing he can do is express support for reversing the deregulation that happened on his watch. I heard him say he had nothing to do with it. even though it was his administration. So if it had nothing to do with it, they did it in his administration against his will. Maybe he can come out and say that he supports us moving in a different direction. You know what I'd like? I would like for, at one point, just one time, for a incident to happen and no finger pointing happen.
Mm-hmm. That's impossible.
Okay, so it doesn't matter whose fault it is. Let's handle it.
Let's work together and get
You know, and if we want to come up with solutions afterwards, let's do that. But it's hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to look back at someone's decision, whether they're a Democrat or Republican, and say, well, look at what your decision did. Well, you know what factors went into that decision? You know, I mean, it's not like these people are just sitting around and thinking to themselves, hey, you know, it'd be a good idea. Let's deregulate the rail industry. Deregulation, then throw it out there. You know, I mean, nobody sat there and did that. They thought it through, you know, and, you know, perhaps it was a bad idea. You know, maybe it was. You know, I know that typically regulation of industries is not necessarily a good thing.
Mm-mm.
However, the oil industry could use a little bit more regulation. They're turning profits at an unprecedented rate. And the last I heard, there was a thing on the table. There was an offer on the table for their union. They wanted to get 7 days of paid vacation for the workers, and it would cost the oil industry $327 million, something like that. And they rejected it. In a year where they made like $7 billion in profit, paid out $1.8 billion in dividends, and invested $13 million in lobbying.
Is there a hint of greed?
I think
this?
Yeah, and I think that's what it boils down to. Is just massive amounts of greed.
Yeah. Spread the wealth.
This is a little off topic, but this brings up something about lobbying. I watched a documentary on, I forget where it was at. But anyways, it's called The Swamp. And if you...
That's Washington, D.C.
Well, it was this documentary crew that went in, and they were following the pro-MAGA kind of party that came in. Their whole goal was to drain the swamp. As a repercussion of that, though, what the documentary guys discovered was exactly how much power the lobbying groups have.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It is incredible. You know, you
wrong.
can't even get onto a seat on a committee unless you raise X number of dollars for your party. Like, they track it. They have centers where the senators will go, and they'll even cold call people to raise money. And the people who raise the most money, those are the people that get committee seats.
So what you're saying is that all those calls that I get for the police and the veterans and everything, that's actually some sort
I don't know about police and veterans, but
I don't know. I mean, I've looked a few of those up. They're not legit.
Well, maybe, but I don't know that that's. I can't speak.
Yeah, no,
to the
no.
fact
I understand
that's them. But
a little tongue in cheek there.
I know that these companies are investing $13 million in lobbying groups, and these lobbying groups are the ones that are telling people who can sit on what committees.
It's got to be more than that, Chris. 13 million.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's
we
just
talked
them.
about that on the Rumble when we were covering the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah,
they trump the trains by a long way.
Oh yeah, the pharmaceutical industry is bonkers. How much they invest in lobbying, and it's a big shocker that now Pfizer and Moderna and all them are be the requirements for COVID vaccines when they were doing that. And with the WHO now getting licensed to be able to be in control of the World Health response to vaccines, they were saying that everyone will get a vaccine whether you need it or not. Everyone. It's like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I would
Rebellion.
I would love to see a WHO van roll into
Your driveway.
Athol, Idaho, and say,
set up shop.
"Hey guys, we're
Line
here.
up.
Line up and get your vaccines now." And so they sit there for days with nobody there, just crickets. You know,
It's possible. Yeah.
anyways, you know, I mean, what
This thought just came to me. We need more bipartisan catastrophes if we are going to come together.
Yeah, but is it even a thing anymore?
Well, no, it's not.
I mean, look at
That's
this
what I'm
thing that
saying.
happened in Ohio.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
They're still fighting.
It blows up, and then all you get is you get people fighting over whose fault it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well,
That's what I'm saying.
The
It-
EPA, no, it was the fire chief that started the fire. It wasn't us. We're just sitting here observing it, and it's going as planned. Well, how's it going as planned if you didn't plan it? You know, and then, you know, you got Buttigieg calling out Trump as if Trump can do anything about it. You know, Trump was just a business guy trying to create more GDP.
Yep.
That's all he was doing. You know, so who could think of all ends? But it seems like as soon as something happens, the first thing that we do is start pointing fingers at people and saying, "Oh, it was his fault. It's his fault. It's his fault." Who cares?
That like does anything.
Who cares whose fault it was? You know, just get it cleaned
It's a
up.
normal human response.
I suppose
You
it
know,
is.
I got busted. No,
Well,
actually,
it's not
it
my
wasn't
fault.
my fault.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that if so and so. That happens at my house. Everything goes bad in my house. Adriana did it. We figured that out. She's accepted that. Thank you, honey. I know you never listen to these.
Railroad companies are expected to ship more than 900,000 carloads of oil and ethanol,
Yeah.
with each one holding about 30,000 gallons of fuel.
And 10 of those a year, they predict will or a month.
90,000 of those
Are gonna
originate in
derail.
Idaho.
10% of them?
78,000 terminate in Idaho.
Those are not necessarily coal or oil, just freight in general.
Freight in general.
But it's kind of crazy to think that our little state of Idaho generates over 90,000 rail cars worth of commerce heading out of the state and over 78,000 rail cars coming into the state.
So you looked at a few of these,
Crazy.
right? You had 25 cars in Coquilala. That was in 2017. You had an unknown amount of coal spilled into the Clark Fork River. That was in 2017. You had fuel-tainted wastewater leaking from the refueling platform at a fuel depot in Rathdrum, Idaho. That was in 2005. A similar wastewater leak was discovered nearly 2 months before and had already reached the aquifer 160 feet beneath the site. The deposit moves 250,000 gallons of diesel a day, 7 million gallons a month.
Yep.
Man, the scope of how much America consumes on a daily basis is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it
I
is.
think we're going to handle that without any accidents or spills.
Impossible.
No, it's impossible.
It's going on right under our noses.
That's why they predict 10 oil or ethanol derailments each year for the next 2 decades. That's a reasonable. That's probably a low estimate.
Yeah.
The Long Bridge project over Lake Pend Oreille near Sandpoint officially opened in 2020 or November 20th of 2022. The completed bridge will be 4,873 feet in length, comprising 49 spans, 224 precast concrete girders, and approximately 55,000 feet of 36-inch pipe pile. It runs parallel to the original bridge, which will now undergo repairs. Well, that's good. At least they're repairing the other bridge.
I'm glad they replaced it before the other one fell apart.
Collapsed.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
That would have been a
Yeah, could you
That'd have been
imagine?
horrible.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine a spill on the scope of Exxon Valdez and Lake Pend Oreille? Lake Pend Oreille would take decades for it to heal from that.
Mm-hmm. if it ever did.
If it ever did. Yeah. I mean, but we've never moved that kind of volume through here before. Like, you think about the past and you think about all the stuff that might be down there already, from the 1800s, that type of thing.
Well, the story goes that there's a train car, I don't know how many, in Granite Lake. Right across the highway here.
Well, there is a trestle that runs across there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been to it.
Yeah.
We've messed around on it before.
I heard, I won't even mention that, about the dye that they put into Granite Lake. This seems like years ago. And they found traces of it in Ponderay, meaning that those two lakes are connected through the aquifer, which makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm not sure how that all works, though. Like, it would be interesting to understand a little bit more about hydrodynamics. Because, like, how does that work? How does a lake sit on top, but you have all this water underneath? Is it like
and why
pushing
don't
it
we
up?
sink?
Why is it not? Yeah.
Why don't we have more sinkholes in North Idaho?
It's an interest. But I guess it's like honeycombed more than it is.
Than it is
like just
one giant lake.
like a massive thing. Because you can see that from people that drill wells here. You have a guy that'll drill a well for 800 feet and never hit anything, and then you have another person drills a well for 200 feet and hits something right away.
Road.
Yeah. Or 10 feet away.
Yeah.
But don't get us started on water witches.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen them work.
I've made them work.
Yeah.
I was doing back bends trying to keep mine from bending down. I don't believe this.
Mike showed me that once, and he demonstrated. He was like, he had the two.
He used the
had the
welding
two
rods.
poles, and he said, "Watch this," right? And so he walked over a hose that was on top of the ground, and as soon as he stepped over the hose, the rods went whoop. And I was like, "Oh no, come on!" He says, "Here, try it." So he showed me how to hold it, and I could not keep the rods from crossing when I got over the top of the hose. I couldn't stop them. Like, they would spin in my hand regardless of, I mean, I guess I could have held them like whatever, but I was not twisting them at all. They move of their own accord. You can't do anything about it.
It's weird.
It's bonkers.
So how do you explain it?
I don't know. I mean, is there some kind of like energy that is created by the water? Or
I think it has to do with the physiological makeup of the person using them, because I have seen people not be able to have it happen. And like I said, mine was I think it was a willow stick or some stick that they use. I can't remember what it was. And you bend it, it comes to a point. And I was walking back and forth, and I went over that one spot, and I could feel the pressure start to pull it down, and I started pulling it up.
Like a fishing pole.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I got a big one here.
Fishing. I got a big one.
And it worked. So
I don't know how it works.
Can you bend spoons too with your mind?
Plastic ones if it's really, really close to the microwave.
Well, I think there's a big difference between those two things. Yeah, bending spoons.
Telekinesis.
That's a whole different realm. But I would not say that it's a thing unless I had not seen it. Like, I probably would be skeptical too, but it's hard to be a skeptic when you watch it happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it. I don't know the science behind it. I don't know if there's any science at all behind it, but I know that I've seen it work. And I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, I guess, a person can choose to not believe it if they want to. And, perhaps it is, some type of a psychological thing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I had an uncle out in Southern California desert, and he witched for a well in the desert and walked all over his property and finally found a spot. And they went down 60, 70 feet, found water.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't know.
do you think there's any significance to the fact that they call it witching?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty broad
That's just
term.
a random name because it's a natural phenomenon.
I think at some point,
spiritual
point,
dimension. to
I
that at
see where you're
all.
going with this, Ken.
Well, I mean, come on.
yeah.
Come on.
Would you?
I mean, the way I see it is you're walking around with two rods, and there's a demon that's like, watch this. Look, I've changed the world because you can found water now. I think that probably a lot of names are created out of traditional concepts, and we come from a long line of people from Europe that were very invested in occult, druid practices. They're still embedded in our culture. So I mean, I don't make anything of that. You could probably do kind of a word study on the word witching, and you'll probably find that there's different definitions for it. But I'm not sure how it works, but I do know that it works. And it's weird.
In the UK, water companies sometimes use dowsing rods, which is what we talked about, Mike has, to find pipes, underground pipes.
Yeah, I could see how it would work.
Well, they're
I
the
was
British.
Walked out here one day and there was a
Superstitious.
car parked in the lot, and it was from Ohio. Ooh, that's weird. Yeah, very weird. Let's say it was Oregon. Okay, just as bad.
That's better.
And the car's there, and it's I can't remember the exact name, but it was some sort of geological thing, and I'm looking around, I don't see anybody, and I finally see this guy walking between the property line over here, and he comes out, and I said, "What are you doing?" I introduced myself and stuff, and he goes, "Well," he says, "there's a pipeline, gas pipeline running along our property line here. Did you know that?" Obviously not. And I didn't know it either. And I said, "So what are you doing?" He said, "Well, we're looking for leaks." And I said, "Leaks? We've got a pipeline right there?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he was walking along, and he had this stick. It looked like a sprayer, but it was actually a sniffer. And he'd just walk along, and I said, "Is it how deep is it?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I said, "And it can pick up that?" And he says, "Oh, yeah." And then he goes, "If I fart, the alarm will go off." I said, "Really? That's
Wow.
sensitive?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah." And so I just thought that was kind of weird. And I was going to look into that.
What, for a Christmas gift?
No, Ken,
You could
if
have-
there really was a pipeline out there,
You could have fart detectors
This
all
guy-
over your house.
this guy could have been some sort of terrorist, and he's looking for a spot to plant his next bomb. I don't know.
I just know I want fart detectors now.
Yeah,
If that's a thing, I want it.
that's a thing. They're pricey, according to him.
Could you imagine putting a fart detector on each seat in the church?
And have it go boop, boop,
And
boop,
have it
boop.
like with a light on it that goes off, like when a person in the seat passes gas. How many times do you think people pass gas on a regular church service?
We are totally off the rails now.
We've derailed.
How many people actually pass gas during a church service? I don't know, Chris. I mean, that's important stuff. We should probably dig a little deeper into
Spiritual
that.
significance to that.
I got to do some research here.
Oh, sorry,
How
folks. Sorry.
often does a person
Well, I'm looking for a
pass
gas.
gas? Let's see.
50 times a day.
5 to 15 times a day.
Well, I was well above average yesterday. Breakfast burrito.
Wow. That says 5 to 15 times a day. This one says 13 to 21 times. 14 to 23. The average person has about 0.5 to 1.5 liters of gas hanging around in their digestive tract at any given time.
In liquid form, or
13 to 21 times. So there seems to be an average. So you would think that there has to be at least one or two.
So that's almost once an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our sermons are 3.5 hours long.
They used to be till we got that dang timer. Oh. Yeah,
So odds are at least once per person.
yeah.
Oh no, there's people that don't.
You could probably
On
capture-
average.
We could probably capture that and run our furnaces on it.
There you go.
Well, we
Instead
need
of
a
having seats, have little.
What you need is a
funnels.
little funnel down there
With
a
air.
little very soft vacuum to
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. If you are still listening to this podcast, I'd like to
You should see
apologize.
kid's face. Get a picture of kid's face and put it on the front of this episode.
No, we're not 12 years old.
Yeah, the jury's out.
R2.
R2 duty pants. Yeah, it's hard to take this stuff seriously though, because you don't really take it seriously unless it actually happens. That's the problem. Right? Because people just kind of ignore this kind of thing until it actually happens. You know, out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And people are happy with that until you get in Ohio. And then all of a sudden everybody's freaking out about it. You know, it's like, well, this has been happening for a long time. You know, this stuff's been moving around our country for a long time. You know, maybe we should have been a little bit more concerned about it when it was a thing to be concerned about.
Well, like I said, 43 years ago when we moved up here, a year later, I found out that the nuclear waste is being transported. I can't remember where it was going, if it was going to Wyoming or if it was coming from Wyoming and going to, what's the one we have in central Washington? What's the Hanford. Going there for disposal or what? Yeah. I don't remember the details of it. But it was just surprising to me.
Yeah, that's scary. And our community is it's growing exponentially, but it's so small, and we get carried away with thinking about things that really kind of are out of our control, like the Chinese balloon. You got the balloon flying around, you got all this stuff going on with the balloon, people are freaking out about the balloon. Meanwhile, there's toxic chemicals burning off and killing 47,000 animals.
And black helicopters with no numbers on them flying around.
Where's that at?
Here.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of those.
You haven't?
Where are they at?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Well, it was about 5-6 years ago. It was a big thing. We just saw one. Where were we?
I see them pretty regularly over the lake.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Really?
get the binoculars. There's no numbers on them.
No markings at all.
It's
Interesting.
Yeah. Nobody cares.
What's that all about?
I don't know.
We need to find out.
Okay.
If you know anything about this, let us know. We want to interview you.
Yes. Send us all the websites available for black helicopters, black ops
Without marks.
Black SUVs with no plates,
with no plates.
blacked out windows.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know who that is. It's those guys.
Yeah. Well, we do have a submarine.
And we have
Training
submarines, yes.
Yeah.
There are
Got
submarines in Lake Monterey. They're scale models though, aren't they? Like radio controlled scale models, or is there?
Well, they're unmanned.
Quarter
Some
scale.
Good size, yeah, quarter scale. Some good size ones.
They test sonar, right? Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing? Testing
lots
sonar.
of acoustic stuff. Yeah.
What are they really?
Wasn't
doing?
it somebody? Wasn't there a
What's really going on down there?
story about a concentration camp was being set up in Sandpoint or Bonner's Ferry or something,
Yeah.
or out in the woods?
Out in the woods.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. I read a story about a guy who was out hunting north of Bonner's Ferry, northwest Bonner's Ferry, up in the mountains there, and he came across a compound and chain link, a couple of buildings inside, nothing big, and a bunch of guys standing around talking in Russian. He's still alive, so
That was
I
Vidania.
don't know. True or not, I don't know.
How did he know it was
They-
Russian?
Probably because
Could he see the could he see the level of consonants coming out of them?
Yes, he could hear them, and they probably had Russian hats. Yeah, they had Russian hats on. That's how he knew.
They have T-shirts on that says "I
I'm
love
Russian."
Russia."
The big fur hats.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
The big fur hats.
Big sickle and star
Cossack.
hat. Yeah.
Who
Oh,
knows?
boy.
You know, I mean, who knows?
I don't know. Who does know?
I don't know.
Somebody's got to know something.
I know
There's
nothing.
so much going on out there. It can be very distracting, really, if you let it. I was thinking about this the other day. You know, it's how much time do believers invest in worrying about things that are just completely outside of their control, and panic about it and worry about it and get their rumbly tummies over it, and when in reality the only thing you really truly have control over is yourself.
Yeah,
and
your reactions to these things.
And that is even really, an illusion. You don't really have that much control over yourself either. I mean, so your level of control in this world is very minuscule.
Yeah. In fact, I'm losing control over myself right now if we don't end soon. Do I have time to go to the bathroom?
No.
No?
In fact, why don't you just go ahead and give us some last words so you can
Last words. I was thinking about that. And the one thing that I came up with is that Jesus Christ is still in control. And God is a whole lot bigger than I think any of us realize. And we need, if you're not in the Word, all of this kind of stuff that we talked about today will drive you nuts. It'll cause you to panic. It will drive you down a path of conspiracy that is probably not healthy. If you are a conspiracy theorist out there and you can deal with it, have fun. Just have fun with it because there's too much of it out there to digest and make it through the day without anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a healthy understanding of it is probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't need to dismiss it.
But don't dismiss it. But then again, don't saturate yourself in it either. I mean, you got other things to saturate yourself in, like the Word of God would be a good thing to saturate yourself in.
I got
as
a friend
opposed to that.
I got a friend that sends me a lot of the stuff out there, and his response is usually he sends me the link, and then his comments are usually like, or whoa, or hey, check this out.
Like the old Arsenio Hall show, things that make you go, Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That guy had the longest fingers in the world.
That is a weird statement
That
to
was
end on. Chris.
abnormally long fingers. Yeah, Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, they used to bring that up, huh?
Yeah, strangely long. Any last words, Ken?
I was just looking up a verse.
You were crafting an apology to our listeners.
I don't know. Is that possible? Well, it reminded me of Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And so that's all we're guaranteed, really. And it's a thin guarantee. We have today. And so we would all do well, I think, to make the most of each day and not put too much care into tomorrow because you don't know if you'll have it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Live for today.
It's a freeing way to live if you can latch onto it, to live for today. And I guess you could take that to the extreme and say, what's the point in planning at all?
True.
I don't think that's biblical either. I think that God is a God of plans, but living your life in such a way that you have plans at the expense of today, I think it's probably
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that you don't want
Can't live like there's no tomorrow.
No, but you can't live tomorrow at the expense of today.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who are conspiracy theory minded actually end up doing that. I think they live tomorrow at the expense of today. And there's a balance there that has to be drawn. It's got to be careful with that kind of stuff, with this kind of stuff and things that are happening. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in Ohio? Who knows, the ramifications of that down the road, and how many people are going to be affected by that and how many millions of dollars that the industry is going to have to pay to these people and like they even care. It's still be, peanuts to them, but let's not forget that we have a day today. Today is the day of salvation. You have today. Don't worry about tomorrow. The lilies of the field, they don't toil or spin. They know they've got today. So live today to the most. I think it's great advice, Ken. Yeah. All right. Well, that about does it for us. I know that we really covered a lot of really important ground today. A lot of deep theological discussion happened here today.
I think you're right.
You think I'm right. Yeah. As always, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions for an episode or if you have any ideas, send us an email at 3p@athelbaptistchurch.org, and Greg will start answering those.
No.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks, ABC and its members, for generous support. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples that can do the same. And with that, we are out.